Okay, Mr. Chairman, that's quorum. We can go ahead and get the work session started.
Sounds good.
Members of the North End Neighborhood Association requested a work session to discuss accessory structures, especially garages, and whether or not they are contributing structures and how that may be determined. They can start by giving a presentation, then we can open up to questions to staff and the commission.
I just have a quick 3-minute. I don't know if you need my name. Sandy Herman, 1404 North 7th Street. Mr. Chair and Commission, the NENA Historic team seeks clarification regarding the contributing status of garages in the North End. We seek this clarification so we can assist homeowners with understanding the historic value of contributing structures, or to help neighbors throughout the process of building new garages and ADUs when old structures are deemed unimportant. We think the city needs to mark clear the balance between infill development and historic preservation. It's my understanding that over 100 ADUs have been approved over the last several years in the neighborhood. You can imagine that this type of building in the North End is a hot topic that not only drives the land values, but helps homeowners and their families keep close or create income. There are large stakes when it comes to the question of whether your existing garage is contributing. The issue occurs when applicants with contributing houses look at the historic survey. As you can see on the 2 slides, and you can just flip back and forth, the garages are often called out as present at the time of survey, but no additional information exists. These 2 slides in no particular order are for 2 contributing houses, both with garages marked as existing. One garage was deemed contributing while the other was not. I think staff will make a presentation regarding what qualifies as contributing, but as you can imagine, it is difficult or impossible for homeowners or potential buyers to know what they can do before they sell, purchase, or go to the expense of starting a project. In the new resurvey started this summer and funded by NENA, documents will clearly identify contributing outbuildings, but a complete resurvey of the neighborhood will take years. In the meantime, we see stumbling blocks along the way. Existing potential contributing garages have not been marked for protection and may stand in extreme disrepair. Most were not built in such a way as to stand the test of time, without proper foundations and crumbling floors, wood-clad walls touching dirt, and sagging roofs. Many sit far below the now raised grade of the alleyways, flooding in heavy rainstorms. They are also almost always sited within the modern setbacks. Still others are considered off-street parking when no modern vehicle could or should fit in them. We don't want disrepair to become a strategy for scraping contributing structures. However, it hardly seems fair for certain properties to enjoy the extra equity of an ADU, while other property owners are stuck with the exceptional repair bills for buildings they never knew were important. We would like to see a clear policy applied consistently around the neighborhood regarding historic garages and outbuildings. The status of a contributing garage and its protection needs to be made clear at or before pre-planning meetings so homeowners don't go to all the expense of design and survey. This policy needs to be widely disseminated throughout the neighborhood and to real estate agents, architects, and contractors. We hope staff or a commissioner will volunteer to write an article on the topic to be published in the North End newsletter, which is delivered to all homes in the North End quarterly. And I'll stand for questions, or you can go to Richard and he can talk about how he decides what's contributing.
Any immediate questions from the commission?
I don't have any immediate questions, but I'm glad you brought this topic forward. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Andy.
I will speak to our process as was demonstrated by these slides, which I'll keep up here. Some surveys do call out garage. And in those cases, we by default consider that to be a contributing structure because it is listed on the form. There are various things that can happen that make it where we discover otherwise. Like, for example, we had one where it was classified as a contributing structure. I did a Sanborn map analysis, and the structure didn't exist until after the 1956 map. And for whatever reason, it was called out when the survey was done. And then staff can deem, well, that was built very recently, and it's doesn't have the same architectural features or other characteristics of the property of the historic house. So we can sort of, in those cases, make a determination that it's probably not a contributing structure. But because the form said it's contributing, it would have to meet the findings. And those findings for demolition, if you have a contributing structure, would require to indicate that the removal wouldn't have an adverse effect. And one place that they don't have as adverse of effect is on an interior lot, because they're generally not seen from the primary street. So that can help to meet that one. And then there's other, and as to the point about the cost of repair and rehabilitation, that can be one of the findings. Finding D says the owner, for demolition of any structure, says the owner has reasonably demonstrated that rehabilitation of the buildings, et cetera, would not be economically practical. And so that can be determined depending on the condition of the outbuilding. So there's lots of things we look at just beyond what the survey form says. But as it stands now, if a survey form calls out a garage is contributing, we agree with that unless we find evidence to prove it otherwise.
Thanks, Richard. I appreciate bringing this forward. In my 7 years on the Historic Preservation Commission in Oklahoma City, garages were the hottest topic that we dealt with by far. And the thing there, we did not have the pressure for ADUs that we do have here in Boise, but we've hit on a number of the same issues that were a part of what we dealt with. You know, the garages were built typically not to the same level of standard as the primary structure, and were often very substandard and fell apart quite easily. However, they definitely contributed to the density of the neighborhood and the overall open spaces. And so there's pressure to just let them rot away and then try and come back with something else. And then also you spoke to the notion of corner lots being held to a higher standard because the garages are far more visible. We definitely dealt with that there as well. And it is a struggle to deal with that, you know, fairness. My neighbor gets this ADU, I don't get this ADU. My neighbor's letting his garage fall apart, and I have to deal with it outside my backyard so that he can go build his ADU when it does finally fall down. It's a pretty frustrating thing. I'm curious as to the rest of the commission's thoughts on it.
I have lots of thoughts on
I bet you do.
garages. It's been one of the most frustrating things sitting on the commission, seeing the historic garages go for ADUs. I mean, there is that issue that they aren't built to the same standard as the house. I know it was like a year or two ago, we had one on Harrison. It was a brick garage. It mirrored the house, and we allowed the partial demolition of that garage. And I was against that. The National Park Service put out guidance in January 2023 and their best practices review for evaluating garages and outbuildings in historic districts. Oh, yes. Richard's showing that he also has it. And so I reviewed that just prior to today's meeting in anticipation of this conversation. We see a lot of times, I think it was just a couple months ago, we saw a house, I believe it was in the East End, and it had a garage that was part of the original structure. And that tells a story. It tells a story of, you know, going from a streetcar subdivision potentially to an automobile-centric subdivision. And those are changes that are reflected in the built environment and that need to be preserved. I think there's a little bit more leeway on like wood frame garages that you can't see, that are in the alley. Part of the resurvey, I would strongly suggest that if it's not done, is that you call out every single contributing or not contributing garage on those resource records. By default, if it's listed in the National Register already, like the houses on Harrison, if you have a garage, it's considered listed in the National Register. So I would by default say that everything on Harrison that has a garage is probably contributing to the overall property. But I think it's something that we should be looking at. It's something that, I mean, I would support guidance from the historic preservation team at the city to put out guidance on the city's recommended policies, that everybody is clear. I think that'd be a great thing to do. And I think we should follow the nationwide best practices that the Park Service has put out for evaluating those structures.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Further thoughts and comments? Sure. Yeah, please come on up so we can make sure we hear you.
Thanks, Sandy, about this, but she wanted to keep her. Okay. Suzanne Yaley, 1408 North 6th Street, also from the Nina Historic Team. One of the problems with the historic survey data, some of them have a Sanborn map included. One of those examples did, and one of them did not. So people can look at that and say, oh yeah, the garage was there. Or heck, if I know, there's no Sanborn map. So then talk to the staff. Okay, so the question is, if a realtor calls you and says, hey, will this garage be considered contributing? What is the turnover for that information? Because as you know, in the North End, when you're shopping for a house, it happens quick. So staff time, can you address that? Logistics.
That usually could be answered the same day. If somebody calls at 4:56 p.m. and they need an answer by 5, sorry. But if you give me enough time to work on it, I can definitely give an answer within hours. Usually, sometimes I just look at when they give me an address, like I do when a realtor calls me about a primary structure. I check our database, because the City of Boise's database of surveys is what by code we look at. So I look up the address. I will read about the main property and say, yes, this is a contributing residence. And I also notice on the form that garages are explicitly called out. So as it stands now, that would be considered a contributing structure. And I also, when they do have the Sanborn maps attached, I will look at the Sanborn maps to make sure everything jives and it kind of looks like the same form as we have there now. Just that can provide on the fly evidence that supports, yes, this garage was there always. It was considered a contributing structure, and I can, with confidence, say, consider this a contributing structure. Yeah, and I can do that on the call. And if I have to dig deeper because there aren't maps or I want to do more map research, I'll say, give me some time to investigate this further, and I'll get back in touch with you.
I use the link on your website for the Sanborn map link, but it's not very good. It had the 1912 maps and I couldn't find anything.
Yeah, library.
Okay, so maybe you should put a link to libraries on.
I thought I don't know where does our link go? What is the Library of Congress is where they're housed, and that's where we look at it, and that's where.
Yeah, the Boise Library has the Sanborn maps.
Yeah, conversation needs to be recorded. So if you actually want to say something, it's best to come up to the mic so that it's on record.
So just for the record, the discussion so far has been, come on up if you've got more to say, but the discussion has been about where to find Sanborn maps and making sure we get to the right link.
Right, because the link that you have on the site now, all I could find with it was 1912 maps, plus the Library of Congress site is really slow.
Really slow. But the Library of Congress link is not through our website, or do you see?
It is, but
that's where we do our research
from.
from.
To 1912, and so
if it's the Library of Congress, it should go to a different link and give you all the options.
But maybe the Fort Collins, the Boise Library link may be a better link, so you might want to check that out.
The Boise Library actually doesn't have the Sanborn maps accessible anymore.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Wait,
so it's
There's a link on the Boise City Library page that on online documents, and you scroll down and it says Sanborn Maps, and you can click into any of the Sanborn maps for Ada County, Kootenai County, any of the counties online, and that's where I get Sanborn maps for my project. So I don't know where that's actually going. It may be going somewhere else, but it's easy enough to navigate from their website. So
Gotcha.
I would recommend that.
Well,
And is that linked on the city site right now?
I've never looked for it on the city site. I
I-
found it through the Boise Library
nor,
site,
nor have I. I usually just go to the Library of Congress and go from there, but
and I've never been to that site. So it's
Okay,
Okay.
the end result is, I guess we can look in to see what our link is. One of the best resources to me is the Library of Congress link. That's where they show up, and you get the top one is usually 1912, then it's 1912 to 1949, and then 1912 to 1956, which is when they redrew them based on the pastings from the 49. And those are all available on the Library of Congress direct link, which is probably where the 7 other ways we've been talking about probably all refer to the Library of Congress.
eventually wind their way back to
Yeah.
that place. Yeah. Mhm.
And I can verify where the city site actual link is, and
Okay.
not during this meeting because it should have ended 4 minutes ago. But
So as far as, there is no official action from the commission, but, when it comes to direction or input for staff, have we made any helpful progress? Is there,
I would say, we can work with the staff can work with the commission to make a determination of what the best practices are, if that is how you wish to proceed with this.
I think that would be wise and helpful to everyone. Nina also requested if one of us on the commission or staff could write something for the newsletter. Anyone on the commission or staff wish to address that? Do we want to have our discussions first and determine course of action and then determine the
Yes.
person to write?
That's probably the best route.
Yeah, and as chair, I'm happy to do that, but I think it should be a collective voice once we're
Correct,
all
yeah.
kind of on the same
Well,
page.
we can have multiple people from the commission, so long as we don't form a quorum.
Sounds
The
great.
people on the
Yeah.
committee.
Mhm. Sandy, yeah.
Just to clarify on that newsletter, our next newsletter won't be going out till spring, so probably early March would be
Okay.
when
We've
that
got a
comes
little
out.
bit of time.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
That doesn't mean you should procrastinate.
Okay,
I will not rest. Yes.
yeah, all right, yeah, okay.
Very good. Thank
Right.
you.
I'm glad you didn't say Thursday next week or something. Yeah. Okay, I think that's.
Great.
That doesn't, I don't think there has to be a motion to do that, or does it? No, there doesn't have to be a motion. We can just work on that collectively. And
Will that be a work session item or how's the best way to handle that?
yeah, that's probably the best, to have another work session, maybe at the next month's hearing,
More of a working work session?
a working work session. Yeah, where we work on what we've been asked to work on. Yes.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Further discussion on this evening's agenda for our work session?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will run through the agenda real quick and then we can take a couple minute break before the meeting. So first new business item A is revised findings from an application from last month where the recommendation was changed from denial to approval. Again, just a reminder, those are not public hearings, just require action by the commission.
And that one can go on consent?
It can go on
Okay.
consent, yes, it can. Item number 1 was deferred from last month for redesign. That's DRH 25-00351 at 1616 North 25th Street. You received updated materials in your packet along with an updated staff report. We will hear that item, but our recommendation has changed to approval on that. And then item number 2, DRH 25-00373, 1605 North Harrison Boulevard, an application to modify the character defining facade of a contributing structure. We will hear that item as well, and that's it.
Very good. Thank you. See you at the top of the hour.
All right, Mr. Chair, it is 6 o'clock. We can go ahead and get started.
Very good.
Good evening and welcome to the Boise City Historic Preservation Commission public hearing. A few things to start out with for tonight's proceedings. Everyone from the public entering the hearing virtually has been automatically muted and cannot speak. As the item you're interested in comes up for discussion, you will be called upon and unmuted. There's a chat function in Zoom. It is not part of the record and should only be used if technical difficulties arise. Our procedures for public hearings begin with a presentation from the planning team. Then we'll go to the applicants and then the representative of the Registered Neighborhood Association, followed by questions from the commission. After that, we proceed to public testimony, starting with those who are in person, and then those who signed up on the sign-up sheet in advance, and finally, anyone else who raises their hand either virtually or in person. If you're attending through your telephone, you can type in *9 to raise your hand. Each member of the public is allowed up to 3 minutes for testimony. We are strict with this time as it is limited in code. Finally, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal, after which the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate and render a decision. And with that, Mr. Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you, Josh. We are citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. Any decision made tonight will be appealed to the city council, provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. In order to file an appeal, you must have given written or oral testimony at tonight's meeting. So that's why it's important to give your name and address when you testify tonight. We utilize a consent agenda. This means that if the applicant agrees with the staff report and if there is no public opposition, the item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. For items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order just detailed a few minutes ago with staff, applicant, neighborhood association, and then the public testimony. Thank you all for attending tonight. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Montoto.
Here.
Malloy.
Here.
Otter. Harks.
Here.
Owens. Sales. Moore.
Here.
4 present, 3 absent.
Great, thank you. Next up, without objection, I will place item 2, minutes acceptance from the Historic Preservation Work Session from October 27th, 2025, and Historic Preservation Commission meeting on October 27th, 2025 on the consent agenda. And again, without objection, I will place item 4A, the revised findings for DRH 25-00212 at 630 East Carl Street on the consent agenda. And with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Malloy.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
I second.
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Montoto.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Harks.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
All in favor. Motion carries.
Great. Moving on to our next item, DRH 25-00351 at 1616 North 25th Street. Could we have the report from staff?
At the October hearing, the Historic Preservation Commission deferred this application to this hearing, requesting that the applicant address the staff's issue regarding scale and massing, as well as lot coverage. Staff has reviewed these changes and based on them having been made, has changed our recommendation from denial to approval. This is the aerial map indicating where the property is located on the east side of 25th Street between Bella and Hazel Streets. This is the revised site plan showing the proposed location of the new residence and a garage with a storage space above. This is the revised basement plan. Revised first floor plan for the residence and garage. And revised second floor plan for the residence and storage space above the garage. Here are the revised elevations of the residence showing how the applicant reduced the height 4 feet and changed the design to have a dormer in the front facade. And here are the revised elevations for the parking accessory structure whose massing has been reduced to allow for the reduced setbacks. These are images of the historic residences across the street on the same block face. Initially, the applicant based the building's height on a nearby tall new construction, which was not appropriate for establishing contextual height. Historic houses on the west side of 25th Street are small one-story structures, generally 16 to 22 feet tall, making the original proposed structure significantly taller than its historic context. After the October HPC deferral, the applicant reduced the height by 4 feet to 27 feet 6 inches, bringing it substantially closer to the heights of nearby historic homes and improving compatibility. With this reduction, the massing and form are now compatible with the historic block face as it developed during the period of significance. Although the design is still technically considered a two-story residence, staff now supports the application because revisions have improved the building's massing, form, and contextual fit. The proposal also includes an accessory structure with a two-car garage and storage above, which is now reduced to 22 feet in height and under 1,000 square feet, therefore qualifying it for the reduced setback. The proposed residence now complies with the design guidelines for residential historic district and the Secretary of the Interior standards. In consideration of these changes that have been made since the October Historic Preservation Commission hearing, staff now recommends approval, and I will stand for any questions from the commission.
Thank you, Richard. Questions for the staff from the commission?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Malloy.
Richard, did the applicant work with you directly on the design, or did he work on the design and then it came to you? How did that process work out?
We did not. They just responded to the questions, provided a new redesign, and then I did the analysis after receiving the design.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, is the applicant present? Please come up and state your name and address.
Thank you, Chairman Parks. My name is Lars Hansen, address 250 South Fifth Street, Boise, Idaho. I'm here representing the applicant. I am the architect of record for this project and have been assisting the client from the very beginning. To kind of take you to the new design that we have right away, and I appreciate staff's thoughtful comments and review of this project. We understand that when we first brought this project to staff, that we had some specific aesthetic goals in mind that were brought by the client, and primarily they were seeking to do a row house style design. So that was leading kind of the design concept aesthetically. We received feedback from the commission and also from staff that compatibility was probably not really on point with that kind of design, and it led to a vertical aspect to the design, which wasn't really consistent with what we're seeing. It also tended to further enhance its overall height, which was kind of pushing the limits for that particular area. So in looking at that and looking at the design, we felt it was important to take another look, specifically at the context, and look at, the homes across the way, the recently approved home that was on that same block, and kind of understand a little bit better how to fit into the aesthetic that was established there. So you can see here on our rendering, the overall design that we have of this, which is intending to be more in line with what would be considered we'll call it a story and a half aesthetic, but where you see it's presenting living area under the roof structure. So that's the intent here, and I think that we've come a long way. In particular, if you look at the before and after of this, you can kind of see it's a pretty radical transformation from this sort of more brownstone aesthetic to something that's more typically seen, not just in this block, but throughout the North End in general. So in the effort to create this aesthetic, the second floor was significantly, it was modified, moving rooms around, actually reducing some square footage of the second floor and changing some of the space allocations there. So we look pretty holistically at this to come up with something that would be, appropriate. As was mentioned earlier, and this was also something that was in response to our friends with Nina, that they had requested that the garage be modified, not just for the sake of its footprint, but also to go from a 3-car garage to a 2-car garage, which is, more consistently the garage type, if you will, that's found in the north end. We found that we had been slightly over the 1,000 square foot designation for our original proposal, so we're able to bring it in. I think we're at 988 or something like that. So we're trying to be, well under that mark. So now the garage, as staff indicated, does meet the requirements for the reduced setback. So feel like we've done that conscientiously. Then in other, just generally in the modifications, as staff alluded to this, we have reduced the height of the structure now from 31 feet 5 inches to 27 feet 6 inches. And as I mentioned, reconfigure the second floor in order to create that compatible massing and form. Additionally, reduce the overall garage bays from 3 to 2. In doing these adjustments, we are also able to reduce the overall lot coverage. So in staff's reports, they do round to the nearest number. We're at 37.8% lot coverage currently as the home sits right now. In the figure ground studies that we provided, the analysis of adjacent lots, we found that while it did vary, as is typical in the north end, there were some less and some more, but we did find a number of homes in the immediate area that were approaching that 40% range. So at this 37.8%, I feel like we're meeting a good number in there that makes sense for the contextual appropriateness. So I just wanted to say too that we appreciate the thoughtful feedback, from Nina, from the commissioners. We spoke briefly at the tail end of the meeting, and I think I appreciate in particular the clients, desire and willingness to find a solution here that really made sense for the area and accommodate the feedback that we received from everyone who's involved here. So that's our presentation, and with that, I'll stand for questions.
Great. Thank you for that. Any questions for the applicant from the commission?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner
it's not a question, but thank you for putting the effort into redesigning the project. Sometimes we ask applicants to redesign the project and it's not as thoughtful. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. Further comment, question? Great. Thank you. Representative of the Neighborhood Association.
Sandy Herman, 1404 North 7th Street. Mr. Chair and Commissioner staff, can I ask, is there anybody online that's going to comment on this? Okay, I have a content from a neighbor and I didn't want to redo it if she was going to be here. While we do appreciate the reduction to a 2-car garage greatly, we feel the garage could be further reduced to get closer to that 35% lot coverage maximum. The overall height of the home has been reduced, and there has been a significant effort to reduce the massing on the second floor, creating some dormered ceilings. But the actual footprint of the second floor has not been altered very much. This is still a very generous second story for the north end. Part of the second story overhangs the porch on the first floor on the back, making it count towards the lot coverage. And we still feel that there are easy ways for the applicant to reduce their lot coverage, either within the house or the garage, to get to that 35% without hardship. Of course, you know how adamant we are as a neighborhood committee and have been about lot coverage. At the neighborhood meeting, we let every applicant know that the lot coverage standards is a priority and why. It's important for the reasons you've heard me talk about time and again regarding drainage. But since that valid concern doesn't seem to move all of the commission, tonight I'll talk about a very near neighbor to the Booth block who built her house less than 10 years ago. At the time, lot coverage limit was 30%. This resulted in them having a much smaller home than they wanted and settling for a 1-car garage. How on earth is it fair to have her look out her front window onto projects that were not held to any standard, let alone the more generous 35% adopted a few years ago? And where do we stop? Modern architecture, by its nature looks bigger and has more massing. There's little we can do about that. And we, of course, don't want new houses to imitate old. But allowing excessive lot coverage exacerbates the larger appearance of these already big houses. New construction looks new, but we should hold standards everywhere in the neighborhood. Last time, Commissioner Malloy asked why the neighborhood was so dismayed by the process of developing the Booth block. And I think it can be summed up well by a chance meeting I had just a couple weeks ago with an out-of-town stranger. We were talking about the beauty of the North End, and he said, "Hey, what's with that giant those giant suburban houses on the one block at about 24th Street?" And I knew immediately what he meant. It's not the fault of these applicants that the historic standards have been fudged all along in the development of the Booth block. And I don't know how many of you have actually gone to see this block in person and had the chance to see that it lacks cohesiveness, not only with the neighborhood surrounding, but each house with each other. By all accounts, the people that live on the Booth block are good neighbors and nice people. But the legacy of this block is that it will never fit in architecturally. We will always wonder what happened and why. Nina would like to remind homeowners and contractors that materials listed within the accepted plans are part of an agreed upon contract with the city. It is important to adhere to the materials as listed, as they are part of standards in the historic neighborhood. Changing materials without consulting the city could result in fines, delays, and mitigation at the contractor or homeowner's expense. We further want to remind homeowners to adhere to all regulations regarding worksite requirements put forth by the city. Rules about work hours, noise, parking, and worksite neatness keep our neighborhood neighborly. We recommend homeowners communicate with neighbors before particularly disruptive parts of the construction process. Any questions?
Questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, is Nina requesting permeable paving?
Yes. And they have actually worked with us for that. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
So there's no one signed up to testify on this application, and confirming there's no one online. The applicant, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you, Chairman Parks. So this is an interesting context here. Part of this, we're looking at these lots. They've been reduced in size by about 10 feet in their depth. So the typical lot in the North End is 120 feet deep. These are 110 feet deep. The resulting square footage of this lot is 5,600 square feet. It's actually 5,619 is what staff indicated there. So if you're looking at lot coverage in the context of like a figure ground, right? What are the open spaces? What are the size of the structures there? And this is something that I alluded to in the original application that talked about that if the alley hadn't had to be increased for the code requirement for this new alley, then our lot would be, again, that much deeper, another 400 square feet. The resulting effect of our lot coverage is about 2.4% that was given to the alley that we no longer have available to us to indicate as being lot coverage for our home. If that were to be considered, we'd be at 35.4%. If you look at it in terms of the actual effect in figure ground of the massing of these homes on these properties, it's an unusual condition in the North End that we have this wide 20-foot alley, and that this has been entirely taken from these lots in particular. So that was, one of the considerations that, I think was important for this, and why we feel like this is contextually appropriate to do how we have. So I think that provides you some perspective why this might be a little bit different condition than what you might find in other circumstances. So I stand for any other questions.
Any questions or comments from the applicant from the commission, particularly in regard to lot coverage or otherwise? Sorry, listening for Commissioner Montoto to make sure. Okay, very good. Thank you. With that, we will close the hearing and render a decision. I'll open the floor to the commission for discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Malloy.
With the revised changes with the 3 to 2 car garage, reduced floor foot from the height and the added dormer, I agree with staff that it does meet the standards. I would, in an ideal world, would love it to be 35% lot coverage, but I feel like at this point they've made a lot of the changes we've asked, and I'll be supporting this application.
Very good. Thank you. Further comment?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
I agree with Commissioner Malloy. I do appreciate the substantial changes that were made by applicant. I do think that we still have an unresolved issue that was brought up the last meeting or the last time we heard this as to lot coverage, and it does remain a concern in my mind. However, I do appreciate applicants' contextual framing of this with regard to the alley, and agree with Commissioner Malloy that I will also likely vote to support this application.
Thank you. I went back and looked. I was actually in a no vote on the 1600 house, the house on the corner that's referenced on this one because of its mass and massing and its height. I appreciate the moves that were made for this one. They the massing is far more sympathetic to the properties across the street. It's still a fairly large house. I understand the concerns about lot coverage but I feel the applicant has made a compelling argument for why they have landed where they've landed. Further comment or a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Malloy.
I move to approve DRH 25-00351 at 1616 North 25th Street with the staff's recommendations for approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I will second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Montoto.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Very good. Next item, DRH 25-00373 at 1605 North Harrison Boulevard. Could we have the report from staff?
This is the aerial map indicating where the property is located on the west side of Harrison Boulevard between Heron and Limp Street. This is the existing site plan showing the location of the front steps. Here's the proposed site plan showing the location of the stoop cover and railing proposed. And the floor plan showing this in greater detail. These are the elevations showing the proposed cover and railing. And here we have the photographs of the existing residence and the neighboring property. And another neighboring property and street alley views. The guidelines state that research should be conducted to perform a restoration that is based on historical, pictorial, and physical documentation. This is a contributing residence that did not have a cover over the front door historically. Since there was never a covering over the front door historically, introducing one without evidence that one existed historically is creating a false sense of history and is an alteration of a character-defining facade not supported with historical evidence of a covering in the past. The Secretary of the Interior Standard Number 3 states that each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding conjectured features or architectural elements from other buildings, shall not be undertaken. As demonstrated by the above analysis, this property's stoop covering is not utilizing congruous architectural features and is creating a false sense of history. With that, staff recommends denial, and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Richard. Questions for staff from the commission?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Malloy.
Richard, can you talk a little bit about this architectural style and why it generally does not have a front porch, just historically?
Yeah, well, this is, I have to dig back into the survey form, should be a minimal traditional, or is, I'd have to double check, but this form and this style of a house, yes, they typically did not have front porches by the time of this era of development of architectural styles. You mostly see front porches in earlier styles, Craftsman bungalow most notably, and then when we get towards slightly later, and of course the Victorian era, all the Victorian era styles, because as all of us professional architectural historians know, there is no style that is Victorian, but like Queen Anne's and et cetera would have that feature. But after a certain period of time, like Tudor Revival and various other later styles just typically did not have a front porch. And that's across the board. You'll see that in houses of this era.
Yeah, inventory list colonial revival for this one.
Colonial Revival. What year of construction? 12, 20 something?
37.
37. That's late for that consideration, but that's what they decided. But it's a kind of a minimalist colonial revival,
right?
I would say.
Idaho is always a little bit late in the architecture game.
Yeah.
So
When
a
I
little
lived
bit
in
later.
Ohio, they used to joke if there's going to be a nuclear annihilation, go to Cincinnati. It takes 7 years to get there.
Great. Further questions for staff? Great. Hearing none. The applicant, are you present?
Good evening. Thank you for being here. Happy Thanksgiving. My name's Amy Allgaier. I live at 1202 North 5th Street. I'm the architect for this project. So my client's requesting a modest change to the front of her contributing home. We'd like to add that small stoop cover over the existing front porch to allow for some coverage from the winter weather. Her mother lives with her, and she's concerned about her safety coming and going through for their home. Richard, could you put up the front elevation, please? So the small roof that we're proposing to protect the front landing from ice and snow, it has no posts, it has no footings. It'll be super easy to remove. It doesn't impact the actual structure of the home. We've kept the structure very narrow and as low as possible to avoid impacting the character of the house. And we basically tried to make it as unobtrusive as possible. I know there was a similar project that came through back in June or July, and I reviewed those minutes to just try to hear what your concerns were, and I try to really address those right off the bat. There's another mitigating factor here, which I think a lot of other homes don't have. So you'll see on these Sanborn maps, which I'm going to submit for the record, this little pop out at the front of the house that we're going to actually attach the stoop cover to is not original to the home. That top map is 1949 and the lower one's 1956. I don't know what to do about Commissioner Montoto. Can we let her see that image?
That's a great question.
So the front pop out was added sometime after 1959, and I emailed with Richard, and he told me the period of significance for the Harrison Boulevard Historic District was between the 1890s and 1940s. And you'll also see on those maps that the home was not listed as veneered until 1956. So the brick veneer on this house, along with that little pop out, were both added after the period of significance. So this explains why the overhang on the front of the house is so short all around the house. And I'm guessing the original veneer was wood siding, which if you want to show the picture of the existing house, the overhang on that second floor you can see is quite a bit deeper. So I think the brick veneer took up quite a bit of that overhang. So given that the part of the structure that we're proposing to alter, that we're actually going to be attaching to, is not original to the home, nor was it constructed during the period of significance, we feel that the health and safety benefits of this little stoop cover outweigh the impact of the alteration that we're proposing. Now, my client is here. She'd also like to say a few words, and then we'll both stand for questions.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, Suzanne Oppenheimer, and I look after my mom who has dementia. She's turning 90 on January 10th. We're having a party. And the front, walking out in the wintertime, it's just a ice skating rink. Even, trying to clear the snow, I try to get out there and it's just an icy mess on that top stoop. So I think having it covered would really make it a lot safer for me and my 90-year-old mom.
Great, thank you. Questions for does that conclude the presentation? Okay, great, thank you. Questions for the applicants from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Commissioner Malloy.
So in this photo that Richard has up, it currently shows an awning over the one window. And I was wondering if an retractable fabric awning, we've seen those throughout history. They're very popular. If that was ever considered as an option to kind of keep the snow
Commissioner
off.
Malloy, the weatherproofness of those is, I mean, they don't last. We get a lot of snow, which sometimes we do. We had Snowmageddon not that long ago, can rip those right off of the brackets and tear the awnings. And then we have and every year we have to repair it. We have to replace it. So just the environmental impact of having to continually deal with this is painful for the homeowner.
I think historically an awning would be potentially more appropriate or a solution that could be explored, but we can go on.
Further questions for the applicants? Great, thank you. And I see we've shared that image with Commissioner Malloy, I'm assuming having it online. Yeah, great. The Neighborhood Association.
Sandy Herman, 1404 North 7th Street. Mr. Chair and Commission, we understand the safety needs of this applicant. We appreciate a design that does not damage the facade of this home and can be removed easily. The design of the cover is minimal and doesn't overwhelm other details of the home. We've seen other projects in other parts of the neighborhood approved because of hardship. Our one suggestion is that the railing as drawn seems rather contemporary and a bit out of character, and we ask that new railings reflect the older existing railing style. Nina would like to remind homeowners and contractors that materials listed within the accepted plans are part of an agreed upon contract with the city. It is important to adhere to the materials as listed as they are part of the standards in the historic neighborhood. Changing materials without consulting the city could result in fines, delays, and mitigation at the contractor or homeowner's expense. We further want to remind homeowners to adhere to all regulations regarding worksite requirements put forth by the city. Rules about work hours, noise, parking, and worksite neatness help keep our neighborhood neighborly. We recommend homeowners communicate with neighbors before particularly disruptive parts of the construction process. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions for the Neighborhood Association from the Commission? And then thank you. No one is signed up in person to testify on this one. Anyone online? No one is online to testify. The applicant, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you. Amy Allgaier, 1202 North 5th Street. We would be happy to work with staff or Nina on that railing for something a little more traditional design, if that's something the commission would be interested in.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Further questions for the applicant or comments on the railing or any other aspects before we close the hearing?
Mr. Commissioner, that was going to be my question about whether the applicant would work with staff per Nina's recommendation on the railing. So.
And they answered in the affirmative.
And answered in full.
Okay,
Thank
very
you.
good. Great, thank you. With that, we will close the public hearing and open the floor to the commission for discussion and a decision.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Malloy.
I guess I'll open up the discussion. I agree with staff's recommendations that without, evidence, we shouldn't be putting on additional things to the front stoop. I know an awning can, get damaged and has repair associated with it. But I think it's a better solution than, I know this, you can return it or take it off, but I feel like once we put something on a house in the north end, it stays there permanently. So even after people move out. So I don't know.
Do you think the evidence presented that this was, we're not looking at the historic condition of the home as it exists today? Does that alter your thinking any?
No, it doesn't. I think if they want to say it's a non-contributing house, they can go down that path, but it's, as it stands, it's a contributing house and it was listed in the National Register as such. So, yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Montoto.
In my decade serving on this commission, we've seen a handful of situations like this, where in terms of a matter of public safety and keeping aging Boiseans in their homes, to me, it's a no-brainer that this is something we should support, especially considering the evidence of the Sanborn map. And I appreciate this coming to the commission level as opposed to staff flat out denying it just based off of their own recommendation. To me, this is so mild in comparison, and there's a specific need for it. And so I will be supporting this application.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
I guess, and I've only been on the commission for, I guess, 2 years now, and we have seen this a couple of times. I do understand the sensitivity on weighing very distinct points of view between preservation, but also necessary utility, and also the impacts that this has on elderly people as we want them to age in place. And I do appreciate applicants' review of the application that we had this discussion on, or not this discussion, but a similar discussion on earlier this summer or fall. I'm not exactly sure when it happened. I recall it was I believe it was in the East End. I do agree that this is a very minimal design. I think that this is probably something that we need to perhaps revisit in a working session to kind of determine what the benchmarks are for these, what I see as necessary revisions to account for health and safety measures. But I appreciate the application. I appreciate the minimalist of the design. And I also take stock in the historical condition argument. And for all those reasons, I will also be voting in favor of this application.
Can I have a question for staff?
Sure. Yes.
Have we ever approved an application with like a time limit on it? Like you could have it in place for like 10 years? No.
Well, the approve, what are you referring to? The time limit for it to stay?
Yes.
Not that, because I don't think we can have jurisdiction for that. Any approval in planning runs with the land. So if they get an approval to build something, it can be perpetuity.
Okay.
Correct. Further discussion or a motion?
Mr. Commissioner,
Commissioner Moore.
I would make a motion to approve application DRH 25-00373 on the condition that the applicant work with staff to design or settle on a more traditional style railing for the front of the house.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Montoto. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Nay.
Parks,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
3 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Very good. That concludes our meeting for this evening. With that, we are adjourned.